What are 7 gifts that you've seen in your life that have come from quitting alcohol?
Oh my gosh. So as I was coming up with this list, I realized like it is so much more than 7. And I think I came up with like 100. So I'm like, let me try to condense it. There's so many things. And what's crazy is I was into wellness for about 15 years before I quit alcohol. And so during that time, I was doing all of these wellnessy things and beauty things and sleep hacks and this and that. And once I quit alcohol, like everything just became so much easier. So one of the biggest gifts was life just became easier without alcohol. Like everything that I was trying to do, get a healthier body, feel better mentally, emotionally, parenting, my meditations, like everything literally improved. So that's like my biggest takeaway. And then the other thing was I became so much more peaceful, and I've always been a very chill person. Like, and I didn't realize how much anxiety I actually had and carried until I gave up alcohol. So, like, once I gave it up, I had to learn how to not numb and to learn how to feel my feelings and all of those. And once you go through that stage, you just learn so much about yourself and what you like, what you don't like. And it's been an amazing journey. It's been, over 2 years now.
That's amazing. So the first gift you would say is overall, it enhanced your wellness journey. It just made life easier in general, where it helped with your anxiety, helped with your mental health. So why do you think, like from your personal experience, like I think a lot of people know that. I know they know that life will be easier without alcohol. They know that their mental health will improve without alcohol. Why do you think people continue to regularly drink alcohol despite the like overwhelming evidence that it can inhibit their ability to live life to their fullest?
Well, I think there's a part of your brain that literally lies to you and says, okay, you can have 2, 3 drinks or whatever, just tomorrow, go work out, drink more water, try to get better sleep. And it's like, we think that we can hack our body and our system into detoxing and getting better. But the problem is when you do that week after week, and I wasn't a daily drinker, like when I quit drinking, but just even doing it on a Friday or a Saturday would hinder the next 4 days out of my life, out of my week. And when you really think about that and you do that every single weekend, literally 50% of your life, you're like either hungover or you're like in an altered state. And I realized I'm like, this is freaking crazy. Like, even though I was able to, wake up on time, take care of my daughter, all of the things, like on Monday, I just felt like I was operating at 50%. And something that literally told me was like, if you want to operate at 100%, you need to give up alcohol. And what I did was I listened to that voice, I followed it, and it's true. And it's like, we have to almost like be discerning of those voices that we have in our mind, because that ego, that part of your brain will lie to you and will be like, no, but you'll have more fun this way. Oh, you need this to relax, or you need this to have fun. And it's all lies.
First gift was makes your life easier, improve your ability to get healthier and get well. What would you say the second gift is?
So the second gift that came from quitting alcohol would be, I really got to know myself on such a deep level. I realized that I'm such an introvert, and I was actually using alcohol to feel more social, to feel accepted, and all of the things. And now looking back, I can see that stems from I started drinking in my teens. And so, just wanted to be part of, and, you and I had this conversation on our podcast about like, you just feel like you're part of the club because everyone is doing it. And when you step away and you kind of go against the grain, because to this day, I'm like kind of the only one in my circle, in my family that truly does not drink, like not a drop. Right. And so it allows you to kind of like truly, again, get to know yourself and realize things that you like, things that you don't like. Like, I am such a homebody. And in my past, I would constantly feel like I need to be out. I need to be doing things. I need to be with people. And it's like, now I'm like very selective with what I do with my time.
So alcohol can be so alluring because you tell somebody, hey, I have something that can make you more social, that can make your dates flow a little bit better. It can help your sleep in the short term. You'll gain more friends. You'll have some fun. Like everyone's like, yes, absolutely. But they're not thinking about like the downstream effects on that. And so I know that you mentioned that it helped you kind of find yourself more and get more clear on who you truly were. But however, you still have to kind of live your life. So what are some things that you implemented in place of alcohol to help give you the same, effects with improving maybe social anxiety, the way you felt about yourself and stuff like that?
So it's been a journey because I think the first year was easier than the second year, going into the second year, because I was still trying to be social. I was still trying to go out and go out to the dinners. But when that year kind of was over, I was like, a lot of these things that I'm doing are just not fun to me. Like I would be at dinners and I'm like, this is boring. Like this conversation is boring. And I was just like, I don't want to be here. And so again, I listened to that voice inside of me and was like, okay, if you don't enjoy that, like don't go there. Like go to places that actually light you up. And so for me, I love to have conversations about health and business and optimal living and all of those things. And so I saw myself in these certain, dinners or whatever. And like none of those conversations were happening. And so I was like walking away, not being lit up. And so the first thing I would say is to go to places that you actually want to go to. And I actually stopped saying yes to a lot of things going into that second year, which led into this like hibernation phase, which I guess does tend to feel like a little bit lonely, but in my case it wasn't. I was just like, I know this is just a phase of learning about who I am and what I want. Because if you've never done that in your life, and I'm in my almost like 30s, like the time is now. Like I need to learn about what I want right now. If I don't, I'm going to continually do the things that I don't want to do.
That all makes sense. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, because I think it's like it's so hard for people to replace that, because I heard this psychiatrist that I interviewed talk about it, and I forget exactly how he framed it, but he said in order for people to beat addiction or to give up substances, you have to give them a better offer, because the offer of things like alcohol and weed in the short term for people can be very good and very alluring with what the reasons I described earlier. And it's like, how do you convince that person not just that their life will get better, that they're going to be able to still have a good social life, be able to go on dates without having crazy anxiety, be able to sleep, or whatever their struggles were that they were using a substance to numb that. And so I'm glad that we like kind of covered that.
Yeah, and I think the big piece to that is entering into a community or a group of people that are on the same journey with you, and might not be like the same timeline. It can be different. One can be 3 months sober, one can be couple days. It doesn't matter. But I think as long as you have the same goal and you guys are working towards the same thing and are able to have these conversations of, oh, okay, I'm going to an event this weekend, like really anxious about it. What do I do? And just have these conversations is crucial. And so I met Erin, my co-host, about 3 months into my sobriety. And even at that stage, I didn't even tell anyone I'm sober. And so when I met her and she lit up when I said I'm sober, she's like, me too. We started this friendship, and a lot of our conversations were based around how amazing life is without alcohol. And fast forward to now, or even, 2 years ago when we started the podcast, I was like, these conversations need to be out there because other women or other people need to hear them. Because if, I know we're not the only ones feeling this way. Like we have two completely different stories. She's in AA and I had just spontaneous recovery or quitting alcohol. But I still learned so much from her and asking her questions. And for me, having conversations, even like this, it allows me to stay on that path. And I feel like if I didn't have the podcast, if I didn't create my own online sober community, if I didn't have Erin, it would be really freaking hard for me to quit alcohol, or not even quit, to stay alcohol free. Like it's so ingrained in me that I know like this is what I want for life, because I'm having those daily conversations in our group chat. I'm having weekly conversations on the podcast. I'm having conversations with you about it. And it's just like making me realize how freaking cool it is, first of all. Like we've been told that alcohol is cool. It's like, no, sobriety is actually cooler. And I think that script needs to be flipped. And I actually see it being flipped right now, which is really cool. It's going to take some time.
Common future is not common past when it comes to the people you spend time with. So those are the first two gifts. You were getting ready to share the third. What was that?
So the third was spirituality. I was always a very spiritual person. We talked a little bit about yoga before we hit record, and I was a yoga teacher for about 15 years. And I think it was because of yoga, I was able to be sober curious. So I would have 2 years not drinking, and then I would sort of fall back into it. And every time I would fall back into it, I felt so further away from my spirituality, if that makes any sense. And so once alcohol was out of the picture, I was able to, meditate deeper. I got into prayer. I got into reading more, just about different types of spirituality and all of that. And I have this morning daily practice, which I think has truly transformed my days and my life. And just that connection to source, and I call it God, I realized alcohol was numbing that connection. And so anytime that life got hard, which not saying sobriety is, easy, it definitely has hard days, but I had that connection to my source and God to call on, and it always made everything better. I just felt like I was not alone, and I felt supported. And I truly feel like I've never really had that connection before.
Diving deeper, how do you define being spiritual? Because to me, for me, I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus and I believe in God, and that's my flavor of spirituality. But I think sometimes when people say I'm spiritual, it's what does that mean? Does that mean that you're into crystals? Does that mean that you are in with the universe? So how can we define, how do you define that? Because I think sometimes it can be very confusing.
Well, I have the same flavor.
Yeah.
I love Jesus. I love God. What's funny is I used to be into crystals and I used to be into all of those things. I still like those things, but I don't depend on them. I'm not saying oh, I'm going to walk around with a crystal and that's going to give me all my power. No, when I say spirituality, I mean that deep sense of connection to God. And that means I know God is with me throughout the day, every single day. And I infuse that even with my daughter. She goes off to school and I'm just God's always with you. You can always call on him. And that to me, it just makes this journey feel less alone and way more connected into myself.
So really, I guess it's about having this deeper connection within, that you believe there's something in a greater good and a higher power. And for your higher power, it's the same as mine. It's Jesus and God. But it's just this sense of calm and peace and meaning that comes with that belief. Because I think sometimes, I was saying before, it's when people say, oh,
and connection too.
And connection. When they say I'm spiritual, it can mean so many different things, right? Oh, spirituality. And I think because it's become popular now, because, just to say that, I think people have a hard time contextualizing what that means, not just for themselves, but as a whole, because, there's so many things it could possibly mean.
Yeah, it can be so many different things. For me, I try to keep it really simple. Just any way I can connect to God. Anyway, so that's through prayer, that's through intention, that's through a feeling, that's through reading a book. I read every morning. I read the book called Jesus Calling. And I started this 3-4 years ago. And it's so wild because I've read every type of, self-development book, all different types of books. But reading this, and it's a small passage, it truly transformed the way I feel and I look at myself, my life. And it's just a really great way to plug in. That's the easiest way I can describe it, is just I read that passage every morning. I don't ever skip a day. And I feel like I'm plugged in into feeling connected to something bigger than me. And I think when people reach for alcohol, they're almost reaching for that something bigger than them and that connection. And it's choosing between the both. I mean, to me, it's just a no-brainer at this point.
Right. And in the Bible and in Christianity, there's a lot of talk about like idolization and false idols, right? And alcohol becomes this false idol to a lot of people. Now, it's not this again, me saying this is not to say that people can't drink or shouldn't drink. I'm just saying that in our culture, it's like everything for a lot of people revolves around alcohol. Like you're going out on a Friday night, you're going to get drunk. You're going to a football game, you got to drink before. You're going to even like your kids like high school games and stuff. People are going to drink. It's like it's it, and it becomes almost this identity that is so strong and so potent that you have to almost justify why you're not ingesting a dangerous substance. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody like if you tell somebody, "Oh, like I'm not doing heroin today." People are like, "Oh, that's awesome. Good for you." But you're like, "I don't know if I'm going to drink at this party." They're like, "Wait, what? Like why?" Even though I've heard people say that alcohol is kind of close to up there with heroin as far as the risk and the dangers of it.
Well, because people are doing it long term too. That's the thing. A lot of times, from what I hear, it's like people start when they're teens or when they're when they're in college. And because it's so socially acceptable, you're doing it every day or every weekend, doesn't matter. That stuff accumulates in your body, in your cells, in your spirit, in your mind. And it's an addictive substance. You might go into it thinking, "Oh, this is fun." But I know I talk to a lot of women who are like, "This is not fun anymore. I don't want to do this, but I can't stop."
I talked to a psychiatrist from Stanford, I think it was last year. Nolan Williams is his name, and he talked about personal risk as far as substances. And I believe he said alcohol was like number one as far as the highest personal risk, as far as damage, like risk, versus like what can actually happen if you slip on that slippery slope of alcohol. I mean, if you think about, you get behind the wheel, you get into a car accident, you get a DUI, the stuff it can do to you, obviously physically, you can ruin a marriage, you can create all kinds of tension in your life from that, right? That just is so overlooked, and it doesn't really take a lot. Like you take somebody who doesn't really drink, they go out and they take a shot of vodka or two shots of vodka, they're gonna be pretty like buzzed. They get behind the wheel of a car, now they're risking their life. Other people's lives are risking maybe their job or legal stuff. And because alcohol gives this instant gratification, like that we had talked about, like how it can solve a lot of short-term problems for people, and also because it's so socially acceptable and societally acceptable, people really aren't forced to think about that stuff.
Well, they overlook it. People overlook, like they might blame the partner, they might blame the children. "Oh my gosh, my work." But it's like the root cause might be the alcohol. And then you have to even dig deeper. Like, why are we drinking alcohol to cope? What are we coping with or for? It's never the solution. It's never the right tool. And what I've seen over the years is there are so many tools that we can have for socializing, for our health, for, feeling more relaxed after a busy workday. Like alcohol is not the answer.
So now that we've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of the idealization of alcohol and the dangers of that, what is the fourth gift?
The fourth gift, I would say, is my mental health being improved. And I have in the past, not recent past, but I've struggled with anxiety and depression. I used yoga. Like yoga was my gateway to wellness, but I was still drinking, So thank God I found yoga at 22 or whenever I found it. And then I became certified at 24 because it sort of like kept me in that lane of like learning and seeking for better, seeking for more. But then I always say I was like living this double life, is like I would go to these yoga retreats and be clean and do all of this inner work. And then I would get invited to a party or, in Europe or whatever, or New York City, and just like, I was like, "Oh, that sounds like fun." And I would just like attach to that and completely shift my identity. So I was like living these two different identities. And that really like messed with my mental health because, as anyone knows, you're out all night. When you wake up, I would have these terrible like hangover episodes. I would feel anxious. Like for me, I would feel anxious for the next like 3, 4 days, like on and off depressed. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? Like just negative self-talk. Like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And once I remove alcohol, it was just, I felt more balanced. I felt more at peace, and life didn't feel as hard. Like I was able to deal with life so much easier. I was like, oh my gosh, like life is amazing, actually, So mental health was a big gift.
And so I know wellness, yoga, meditation, stretching. We talked about stretching before. Are all like kind of cornerstones in your mental health routine now. Like, what else do you do to kind of offset the feelings that alcohol are giving you?
I love breath work. So I do breath work all throughout the day. It's just become like a part of my day. I always say, I feel like I'm meditating all day long because I just love to be like fully present and in my body. And I've noticed anytime that I used to be anxious or overwhelmed, I was just too much in my head. So even now, like if I have an event or if I'm going somewhere, like I can feel that anxiety creep up, and I no longer feel like I have to take a sip of alcohol or anything. So like I'll literally turn to my breathwork practice. I'll turn into some visualization. I'll turn into God and Jesus and just saying work through me, and just that connection to my higher self. And then having really good routines. So like solid morning and evening routines. And, there's a lot that I do throughout the day. I always like to say I have this like retreat every single day because I kind of infuse wellness and self-care into my day. And so that really helps to balance me out. So I'll have like really busy work days, but then I really know how to unwind and to relax.
What is the fifth gift?
The fifth gift, it would be just being more compassionate and starting to have better and deeper relationships. I think alcohol lies to us and says, you need to drink in order to have deep conversations and deeper relationships. And what I've realized is sometimes we were holding on to the wrong relationships and we needed that alcohol to have certain conversations, right? But I feel like if you have true friendships and true people in your life that you really care about, it should be easy to have deep conversations, right? I mean, not always, but I feel like I just became more compassionate. I became more sensitive and like in the best way, where I truly care about what people think. Like before, I really did not care. I was like, I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. I was in it for the wrong things. And now it's transformed my relationships, the ones that I kept and the ones that I am building.
What do you look for now in a friend or romantic partner or whatever the example is as far as relationships compared to back then?
For me, it's having deeper conversations and talking about variety of different things, and for it to be both ways. So I felt like I was having a lot of relationships where I was constantly like asking how they're doing and what's and I feel like it wasn't reciprocated. And so like I feel like in this stage of my life, it does need to be reciprocated. Like I truly care about other people's lives. And I feel like if somebody doesn't care about, some of the things that I'm doing, I'm just like, it just doesn't feel fulfilling to me anymore. And so I listen to that, and, it's shifted a lot of my relationships, which I'm cool with because the ones that I have are based on things that truly matter to me.
What advice do you have for people that are trying to break away from like old relationships that aren't serving them? I mean, friendships specifically, because in the context of alcohol.
I think that happens a lot. I think a lot of times people are really afraid to give up alcohol, not even for themselves, but because of the relationships that they have. And, if that's the case, if your relationship is based on alcohol and you basically have a quote unquote like drinking buddy, like I would take a deeper look at that. Like, is that really satisfying you? Like, I've let go of so many drinking buddies, and I did it with like peace and love. And I'm like, whoever's meant to stay will stay. Like, this is what I want in life. Because you realize you end up shifting so much, and you're shifting your identity, you're shifting things that you're doing day to day. You are wanting to talk about different things. And if people in your life are not aligned with that, they will fall away, and you have to be okay with it. I think that is the number one thing. Like, you have to be okay with letting people go, and not being so attached. And talking about yoga, that's one of the things in yoga is the non-attachment to people, to things. And when you live your way, like when you live that life that way, it just makes it so much easier. So I've let a lot of people go, but with love, and it's never any like, negative feelings or anything like that. It's just, I feel like life is so short to hang out with people who don't add any value.
Amen to that. All right. What's gift number 6?
Gift number 6 would be tapping into my limitless potential. So I think like alcohol lowers our energy, our frequency, and all of that. And so when you remove alcohol, it allows you to vibrate at a higher state. And for me, I have more time, I have more energy, I have just these clear thoughts and visions that I want in life and things that I want to accomplish. And it's not like swayed by anything. So I remember I would feel this way, and then I would drink on a weekend, and all of those feelings would just kind of like be numb. And it would take me so long to get to, like, I would procrastinate. I would not answer the emails or like fast enough, Now things that I do in a day, it's like I used to do in like 2 weeks. And it's like, whoa, so that really makes you think like, oh my gosh, with all of this energy, like, where do I want it to go? What do I want to achieve and accomplish? And so that's always at the forefront of my mind, because I know that we're so limitless, and anything that we want, we can truly create or experience in our life. So yeah, it really allowed me to tap into that.
What's number 7?
Number 7 is parenting. So parenting for me, has transformed my life. Like, having my daughter really shifted my idea about life and just the quality of life. And so I remember I used to, if I drank on a weekend and my daughter would want to play the next day, like, I would just be really tired, and I felt so guilty, like I would never put her into harm, but it was like still my actions, or the after effects of my actions would sort of harm her. Like, I'd be like, oh no, I'm tired, or I can't do this or that. And so that was, again, like, she was like one of my biggest whys of why I don't want to drink, because I'm like, I don't want her to have a mom who like lays on the couch after, having fun the night before. And I'm like, that's not, that's not it. So it's deepened our relationship. It's given me more time with her. It's just made parenting a lot easier. And I think a lot of, there's the wine mommy culture, and that says that you need wine to cope with parenting, to cope with the, busy days and all of that. And I think it makes life so much harder. It truly does.
I want to talk about the downstream effects of that, of the wine culture that you just brought up, because I think sometimes parents, I'm not a parent, so like my take with what I say with a grain of salt, but from just talking to experts, I understand that the number one biggest thing that matters most for your kids as a parent is like how you behave, because kids model behavior. And you're essentially teaching your kids that in order to deal with life, you need to have some sort of external substance to do that. So talk a bit about some of the dangers with that. And I know you have a huge community of women, a lot of moms that I know have kind of come out of that. So talk a bit more about that if you can.
You said it correctly. The kids really observe everything that we do. And so they observe the way, not only, if we're drinking or if we're not, but they are observing how we are coping with problems, how we are having conversations, how we're taking care of ourselves. Like, there's so many things that we do that we don't realize they are watching. And for me, and my daughter's 7, and I have these like open conversations with her saying like, because she sees other people drinking, and she's like, no, my mom doesn't drink. And I tell her, do you know why mommy doesn't drink? And I say, because alcohol takes you it alters how you feel. And I want to feel good and I want to feel connected with you. I feel like what alcohol does is it numbs, right? We know that, but it also numbs your connection to your kids and they feel that. Like I know, my mom does not drink. I mean, she's barely drinks, but anytime that she did, I felt so disconnected with her, and I can just think about that looking back. And I'm like, I don't want my daughter to feel that way. Yeah. So alcohol disconnects you from yourself, from your kids, from your reality of being fully present. And that impacts everything.
Anything else you'd love to add to this list? Like if you were to just, if you wanted to say like a few more sentences or words of wisdom outside of these 7 gifts that you shared, what would you say?
Did I cover time? Did I say that it gives you so much more time?
No, but that does actually ring true.
I think I would close it off with, when you remove alcohol from your life, you realize you have way more time, way more energy than you probably ever had. So just getting really clear on the things that you want in life. I used to do this back in the day. Like I used to write a list of things that I want to, let's say, achieve in my life. And I said, okay, what would my day look like if I had those things? And I would write down, the exact day from morning till the night I, fell asleep. And this is something that you can, like, everybody can do. It's like, if you had unlimited time and energy, like, what would you be doing with your days, with your life to feel your best, to look your best, and just to really live an amazing life? Like, we all have that opportunity when we remove alcohol.
So, Michaela, thank you so much for coming on. I think this was awesome. I think my audience is going to get a lot of value out of this. If people want to listen to the podcast, if they want to follow you, they want to follow what you all are doing with the community, where's the best place to do that?
So you can follow me at Health with Michaela on my Instagram. And I have a podcast called Two Sober Girls Podcast with my co-host Erin, and we're at Two Sober Girls Podcast on Instagram. And we have a sober community for women. And if you guys are interested, you can just send me a DM. I'll send you more information.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you again for coming on. And like I said, audience is going to really enjoy this, and hopefully it opens their eyes a little bit to some of the amazing gifts that could come from quitting alcohol.
Yeah, I think just having these conversations are really important. Even if somebody is listening and is maybe sober curious or a gray area drinker, I think just knowing that there are other ways to live and other ways to have fun and succeed in life, hopefully it plants a seed, and allow that seed to grow into something amazing.
That's the hope, right? That's the hope. Well, Michaela, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I really think you're going to like this video as well. I'll see you there.